You and 5 other Democrat commissioners voted against a resolution. Caddo Parish will recognize National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. Did I phrase that right? And if I did, why did you do that?
Well, let me say again, good morning. And Robert, you phrased what you said today somewhat correctly, but the other day, on Monday, you were very incorrect. I saw your comments, and they were very hurtful to me to see you, Robert, intentionally and deliberately sort of twist and turn and insinuate things that are otherwise while the Sheriff Frater was on the call.
Stephen, I would never mean to hurt your feelings. Explain to me how that happened.
Well, you went on and you pulled the minutes that I had the clerk sent, and you went on and you read where I said that I had an issue. You quoted me the part where I said I wrestled and I struggled with the national recognition. But Robert, you conveniently just omitted. You didn't even bother to go down where I said if this language was recognized in law enforcement in Caddo Parish and Shreveport, I'd be all over it.
No, actually, I did mention, if not in that segment at the very beginning of the next, that you and Commissioner Chavez were attempting to work out where the word local was inserted. But back to the original question, why did you and the other Democrats decide not to vote for National Law Enforcement Recognition Day or Appreciation Day?
Well, first, it was an issue with the language, okay? And it was clear there, and I was very clear that I wanted to make sure that Caddo and Shreveport law enforcement stood out from the rest, stood out from any national conversation that's taking place. And I want to be clear about that. I think that we have great men and women who serve and protect our community. And so that was our goal. And it was a procedural move because we could not make the change in the title. And if you go back down further in a minute, Commissioner Chavez says, I'm cool with that.
You couldn't amend it? There was no way to amend it right then?
You can't amend the title because it's a publication issue. If we had amended, you can't amend the title. You can amend the body of the text, but you can't amend the title.
Mr. Stephen, why were you adamant? Why were you adamant? Why did you want it amended?
I think when we look around and we see what has happened with George Floyd, when we see what has happened with Trayvon Martin, when we see what has happened with Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, we see that 18 police officers have been turned in to the FBI for participating in the Capitol riot. I think that it is an honor for our local law enforcement to want to be recognized separate and apart, a distinct day for them, specifically for them. So this was not an intent, and I hate to see, Robert, that y'all made it like, well, we had some vendetta. I think you even went so far as to make it seem like I had a personal or some beyond an vendetta with the sheriff. That's not true. And, again, that was very hurtful. That was very disappointing. I have friends who are in law enforcement. I have family members who are in law enforcement. And so to have my nephew ask me, why are they saying that, I'm appalled.
The sheriff said, Stephen.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
The sheriff said that the action of the commission, the 6 of you, the Democratic members, was disappointing to him and to many of his deputies. What is your message to the sheriff today and to those deputies?
Well, anytime that the commission has appropriated millions of dollars to Shreveport Police. We've donated millions of dollars to the Caddo Parish Sheriff's Office. We provided millions of dollars to local small jurisdiction law enforcement agencies throughout Caddo Parish. And so to sit back and say that they're disappointed because we wanted to recognize specifically and individually our local law enforcement separate and apart from everybody else, we wanted to set them apart, distinguish them in our own way and in our own mind. That was the intent and goal. Anytime that a funding item has come up, Sheriff Frater, we've always had this. They've always had our support when funding issues come up. Sheriff Prater has always been able to pick up the phone and call us. So I'm disappointed that he didn't even pick up the phone and say, hey, commissioners, what's going on? Is there an issue? We should have a working relationship with the sheriff. He's our Homeland Security designee. And so I've cut commercials for his campaigns and re-election campaigns. And so we joke when we see each other at the elevator, when we're going up in Government Plaza. So we shouldn't be in a situation where I should receive a screenshot from individuals saying that this is what the sheriff is saying, he's calling y'all out and those kind of things. I had to hear about that from somebody.
Mr. Stephen, you were quoted by the TV station, and I don't have it in front of me. I apologize for that. So you can sort of get me back on track if my paraphrase is incorrect. You sort of said, the TV station quoted you as saying that part of the reason that you voted against the resolution was because a number of your constituents have my words, not yours necessarily, you can set me straight, have a strained relationship with the police. Is that sort of close to what you said?
Absolutely. And to ignore that fact would be a mistake on my part. I represent a constituency that's a majority African American. I want to say at least 80% of my district is African American, and to ignore the fact that there's a strain, or is anybody between the three of us, anybody doubting that there has been a rift between the African American community and policing over the last year, 2 years, 3 years? Would anybody deny that?
Do you think most police officers are good folks and do a good job?
I absolutely do, and I thank you, Aaron, for that. I think the vast majority, overwhelming majority of police officers, and I think that we try to do our best as public officials to demonstrate that, and so that's why we wanted to make sure that we recognize Shreveport, Caddo, and our smaller jurisdictions are separate and apart, not to send some message that we don't support them. That was never the intent. If we could have fixed the legislation procedurally right then and right there, we would have. But we have things that's called public notices and title. We have to read things by title. And if Commissioner Chavez hadn't said, I'm good with voting it down so we can start over.
Will you offer this legislation next year, Stephen?
We have a resolution on right now. I also saw the sheriff, he was upset because they weren't being recognized as essential workers for the vaccine. The resolution we have on the agenda this week recognizes essential and frontline workers, which includes our local law enforcement and our frontline medical staff that's been fighting this pandemic. So we're recognizing them this week in our resolution. So I don't want people inciting and being upset about a piece of paper. The Cattle Commission has no obligation to fund anything with local law enforcement. But when they needed cars, we provided cars. When they needed to upgrade the communication systems at 911 centers, we supported the 911 center, helping them upgrade their communications. We provided all kinds of support, financial support to law enforcement. So I want people to see what we do with our actions and what we do with taxpayer money to support local law enforcement, not these symbolic statements and gestures. We can proclaim our own days. We don't have to run with the pack. We don't have to run with the crowd. I want us to be a step above the rest.
Caddo Commissioner Stephen Jackson, thanks for your time.
Much